Hi, today we're going to do number 1, two-sum on LeetCode with JavaScript. So we have an array of input of nums. So each value is a number, and we have a target as given as well. And we want to return an array of two indexes with the index of the two values that adds up to 9. So for this one, 2 and 7 adds up to 9. So 2 has an index of 0, 7 has an index of 1, and you add it up and get to 9. So how can we solve this? One way we can solve this is to use brute force. So that means we try out all possible combinations. We try this, 2, 7, 11, 15, 7, 11, 15, 11, 15. So we have to do a nested for loop and see if the values add up to the target. Great. So what's the time complexity of this? Since we're doing a nested for loop, it's going to be O of n squared because we have the loop and then a nested loop inside of it. Now the space complexity, this is going to be only O of 1 since we're not creating any extra space to solve this problem. So how else can we solve this? Generally, when we see a list, another way we can usually solve it, but usually not the most efficient way, is sorting it. So if we sort this, because this one's sorted, but this one isn't sorted. But if it's sorted, we can just use pointer, a left pointer and a right pointer, and then add this up. If this is greater than the target, we know that our values is too small, so we can increment from the left side, from the small side to the small side up. But if it's smaller, we can decrement from the right side to it to just narrow down the scope. So we sort it and then use two pointers and decrement or increment pointers depending on the value. So what's the time complexity of this? Since we're using pre-built sort and also doing a iteration of it, it's going to be O of n log n. And then the space complexity, because of the pre-built sorting method, it can vary, but I like to use the conservative O of n. So how can we make this even better? Another way is we can use an object or a map to keep track of the values. So if we add 2 on it, we find the difference that we need. So we loop through this 2. We need to check the map if it has a 7. It doesn't have a 7, so we add the 2 to the map. Now we go to 7. 9 minus 7 is 2. Do we have a 2 in the map? It does. Then we can just return the index of it. And we'll store the value. So the map or the object key will be 2, and then the index, the value or index will be 0. So here we can do an object. I'm just going to use an object to implement it. And then loop through nums if the complement exists in object, return that value and index. Otherwise, add the value and index to the object. So here the time complexity, since we're just doing a single loop, will be O of n, and then the space complexity will also be of n, and n here is the length of nums because we're creating this object for that length. And since this one has the fastest time complexity, we're gonna go with this solution. But afterwards, I'll show how you can solve the other two ways as well. So the first one is to create an object. So const scene values, and we can create an object here. Now we loop through nums for let so now we check this if scene, so now we find the difference. So const difference equals target minus nums I. So if we seen this value, so if this value is in the object scene values diff does not equal undefined, we can return it. Return. And here they have an edge case that they want to, okay, any order, so it doesn't matter. So here we do scene values diff, so that will get the index of it, and then in the object, and then I will be the current index of what we're seeing. So then if it's not in there, if we don't add it, we have to add this nums I to the object. So nums, so scene values nums I equals to I. Great, that worked. Now let's do the brute force way. So here we're going to do the nested for loop. I and then now we do the other for loop, that j, and we can start with the value after the I. So we do I plus 1 here. J is less than nums dot length, j plus plus. So now we check if these values equal to sum, so const. Or we can just do it if nums I plus nums j is equal to the target, we return the indexes. Great, that works, and now we can use the 2 pointers way. So here we have to sort the value first, and we have to sort it, we lose track of the index. So the first thing we have to do is create a new array that has these values with the index. So we can put a tuple, or an array with 2 indexes. So const nums with index. We can start off with an empty array first, and now we loop through nums. And here we're going to create this array with the index. Now push. So the first value will be the value like 2 here, and then the second one will be the index. and now we sort it. And we want to sort it by this initial value. So then we do A0 and minus B0. Great. Now we have this. Now we do our pointers. Let left equals 0. Let right equal nums dot length minus 1. And we do a while loop while these pointers don't cross. And now let's get the values. Const diff equals nums. Okay, so that will get the difference, the sum of these values. If it hits the target, that's what we're looking for. If target equals the diff, we can return it. But we return, you can return the answer in any order. Okay, so returned let me just copy this. And instead of 0, it's going to be 1. And here, instead of left, it will be right. And then this will be 1. Otherwise, if target is greater than diff, we have to move the left pointer to the right. And we need to do else if here. And then if it doesn't fit in that, that means we have to move the right pointer down. Great, so those are 3 ways we can solve this problem. We can do a brute force solution where we compare each value to each other, add them up, check if the sum equals to the target. Next, we can sort it. If it is, we can just do one loop where we have the pointers on the left side and right side and decrement it or increment it until we get to the solution. And lastly, we can create an object or a map and loop through the nums. If it has a matching complement value, we return the indexes. Otherwise, we add it to the object with the index, the key being the value and the value being the index. Thank you.